Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. Edition 101. Can you believe it? We've got to edition 101 of hypnosisweek.com. I'm going to introduce you to our latest guest in a few moments, who you can probably already see on screen one side, depending on which way he books it. But you won't be able to see his face except on the photograph on the audio podcast channels. This gentleman is an experienced stage hypnotist. He's also an experienced hypnotherapist. He's an experienced performer in other areas as well. We're going to cover all of those things and more over the next 60 minutes as we please welcome to the show the man himself. He's got more awards than I can remember, so I'll let him briefly cover that shortly. The award-winning hypnotist, hypnotherapist, stage hypnotist, and a whole bunch of other amazing things as well, Mr. Attila. Welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Alex, for the interview. And briefly, I will tell you my little history.
Yes, please.
I was born in Budapest, Hungary. In 1983, I left the country, but I studied actually magic. So I was a professional magician originally in the very beginning at U. So when I arrived to Canada, I did magic for quite a few years. As a matter of fact, I even had a magic shop in the world's biggest shopping center in the West Edmonton Mall.
All right.
And then in 1991, that was the first time I was performing in Monterey Bay, California, and I saw Peter Revine. Actually, let's reverse. He saw my performance, and then he approached me and we talked, and he says, well, when I am in your town next time, I will come visit you. So he did come into my magic shop, and he gave me tickets, free tickets to see his hypnosis show.
Excellent.
And, you know, he was originally Australian and he lived in Calgary. So I was in Edmonton. Here, in 1991, with a bunch of friends, we went to see Peter Revine. And that was the first time I saw stage hypnosis. And I was sitting there and I could not understand. So thinking like this guy is the devil, or I don't believe in it, so I have to learn this. I opened a coffee shop in downtown, and then I had a lot of time on my hands. So across the street, there was the library, and I borrowed books on hypnosis. And of course, I could only find medical hypnosis. So then I found a school, and I took all trainings on hypnotherapy, all the way to clinical hypnotherapy. So by 1996, I started teaching at that school, actually. In the Hypnotism Training Institute of Alberta with Annie Slackton. And then I started doing, of course, performances, and I traveled all over. So I developed it into stage hypnosis. I was already on stage, so it wasn't difficult for me to adapt from magic to performance.
Don't worry, I will be with you in 1 second, but I'm just going to, because I've just recently got a hearing aid, and I mean, last week, I've been trying to get...
Sure. No worry. Plus, also, I have an
accent,
accent, so I'm a little bit different.
What I'm going to do is...
So anyhow...
That's better.
Perfect, okay. So anyhow, then after being in the show business, in 2005, I went to Los Angeles and I started to demonstrating what I called 1 second inductions, which is actually a trademark. I trademarked a bunch of different way of techniques of rapid inductions. And that was the first time in this conference in LA when I did a lecture and I met Gil Boyne. So a bunch of big names like Dr. John Butler, he's from England, and Gil Boyne, his friend, the American Council of Hypnotist Examiners, Robert Otto from the IMDHA. So they came to see my lecture, and then we talked. So at the bar at night, Gil Boyne approached me and he says, so do you teach and do you have any materials? And I said, yeah. So, okay, bring it to me. So I already had 200 pages of a stage hypnosis book that time. So I run upstairs to my hotel room and bring it down to Gil with my VHS tape that time, you know, I gave it to him. So he goes away with it. And he phones me next day. He says, come upstairs to my room. So I go up and Gil went through my entire book and giving me tips and ideas, endorsed it.
Nice.
And then a year later, actually, I was the first stage hypnotist teacher teaching in LA with Gil Boyne, which he advertised out. So from then on, we became almost like, I'm not saying friends, but very respected me and I respected him. So we worked together many, many times. Then in 2008, oh, by the way, in 2005, I broke my neck in a car accident.
Oh, bloody hell.
So I have titanium rods in my neck, and then I retired from the show business.
Wow. So then you just went into the therapy side full time. Wow.
And thanks to the hypnosis knowledge, I used it a lot. So I recovered pretty good. Then 2006, I already did the lecture with Gil. And in 2008, they approached me from Europe, from Hungary, from my home country, if I would teach. So I started to going to Europe in Hungary and started to translating all the English courses into Hungarian. Then I started to teaching in Hungary now. So this is how this whole thing started, going into hypnotherapy. In 2007, I went back, finished my psychology degree. Then in 2014, I got a nutritional science degree. Then all kind of different things, but basically I'm not only teaching. I have 10 different courses in 2 different languages.
Oh, wow.
So from basic to all the way to clinical therapy. Each book is about 200 pages. And I did a lot of traveling and a lot of personal therapy as well. So that's briefly about me.
We're going to pick into some of those areas a bit more over the next hour. One, in no particular order. It's just as things jump into my mind, things that I remember about you. The first thing that jumps into my mind is because we have quite a few commonalities. One is you did magic before you did hypnosis. I did magic before I did hypnosis. I was born on a circus. I believe you've performed on circus as well.
I did perform in circuses. I did some shows in Vegas, always corporate market. I did all over the places, actually. But it pretty much Canada, all over, from one end to the other. And you name it, all the way to Tucter to the north. I even did a show where I was in the show with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I met a few famous people.
Cool. So I'm going to, the next thing, Johnson, I was going to ask you, briefly mentioned it, the 1 second touch thing. Now, you've answered part of the question I was going to ask, because you've already told us it was more of a trademark name for a bunch of rapid and instant induction techniques. But I'm going to narrow it down a little bit more, because obviously on the promotional video that's out there, the visual that's shown is clearly just one of those techniques, where it does effectively look as though you just go up and touch them and boom, instant synabullistic sack of spuds, so to speak. Obviously, there's a bit more to it than that, as we both know, even if it's only in the psychological setup. But I'm going to use the language, because occasionally I swear on this podcast. Some bastards, and they've done the same to me, so it's not just victimizing you, they've done the same to all of us that put content out there to try and help people. Ripped off, you put this out as a training package, didn't you? And then the Chinese have bloody gone and knocked stuff off.
So you mentioned the quick induction, okay? So the reality, what the person sees by the time we are going to touch the person in the forehead or we do one of these techniques, there are a lot of preliminary pre-setting to that. So let's review this from the...
Please do, yeah.
Let's review this from the outside perspective. For me to be able to accomplish that, I have to establish a rapport. And this rapport, whether it's a direct or indirect rapport to the client, but the person actually, there's 3 different people will come for therapy or for a show or whatever. I believe in this, I want to experience it. So I will participate. I don't believe in it, or let's see what happens. Am I correct?
I would totally agree.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so Alex, irrelevant which one, they are in my show. They already participating. So all what I have to do is the psychological factors to change. So the more resistance I have towards me, I'm going to use the resistance towards them. Almost like the Aikido. So if you resist me, I welcome your resistance. Awesome. I need a strong man. I need a strong mind who can reject me. I don't want somebody, you know what I mean? So these are, plus also remember the show settings, you know, they made the decision to buy tickets. They bring their friends, the excitement is there. So it's not like I'm walking on the street and I'm just gonna walk up to somebody and say, sleep. Probably I'm gonna get smacked on the head. But if there is a preliminary settings to it, and that could be a, you know, that comes from magic, the subtleties. You know, to set up those little subtleties, subconsciously build it up to the point when we can do that.
I find it interesting, maybe not, well, I say maybe not decades ago, because I know this doesn't apply, or at least I don't think it applies to Gil Boyne, but it does apply to Ormond McGill. It does apply, I believe, to Dave Alman, both who were involved in therapy and stage hypnosis. But a lot of the real pioneers who both did stage hypnosis as well as therapy, but have been accepted in both fields, a lot of them, when you look, but I think Gil's one of the exceptions, do have at the very least a background hobby interest, although with Dave Alman and Ormond McGill, I believe it was also for a short time professional, in either magic or mentalism or both, which, as you say, has its own psychology and subtleties that can be brought to the arena.
I think the draw of us as entertainers, so at least I'm talking about me, I wanted to be in front of other people. I wanted to entertain. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a clown. Okay, being in the circus. So, however, I learned a little magic trick around age 6 or 7, and I presented it at a campfire in a summer camp. And then they started to calling me, oh, the little magician, do you have another trick? Do you have another trick? So I was a little chubby kid, you know, round face with big buck teeth. So, you know, everybody was, so that was my first, how do I say, moment of everybody loved the idea. So I was different than the rest of them. And this drawn me into the field of magic. By age 14, I was traveling with magic shows all over in Europe. So from that transitioning into, you know, the part of the hypnosis, it was basically we utilizing so much on stage what we learned in magic. You know, the one ahead principle, I have to think ahead always of the client, or always one ahead of them, what they're gonna do. So they don't follow exactly what we're thinking or what we're doing. We're creating on a stage hypnosis show, we're creating a misconception. We can't make people
call it a dual reality.
It's a reality presented to them. They become a part of that fantasy. Okay. However, their conscious mind can anytime interrupt or stop that if you say something they don't want to be a part of it. Going back to Gil Boyne, the very last course Gil did before he passed away in 2009, he was doing it with me in Hungary, actually. So it was a very honor that Gil was rewarded to the Hypnotist of the Century in this business. He created the transforming therapist, how to change the person's belief system, what they have developing in early childhood. So I don't know, you ask any questions. Maybe it's easier just bubbling around.
So you've got more. I was looking at your website earlier and I remember that. And I thought the moment I noticed all these different awards, I went, I'm not even going to try and remember all them because there's so many of them. You've got award after award after award. I know this is somewhat of a difficult question to ask and it's putting you on the spot, but why do you think you've ended up with so many awards?
Why did what?
Why do you think you've ended up with so many awards? I know that's an awkward question because to answer it can only possibly be answered in a way that might feel uncomfortable or egotistical. But the fact is, you have got an extraordinarily large, I would definitely say well above average amount of industry awards.
I really don't know.
Well, clearly it's because you're damn good at what you put out there into the world.
I'm thinking what to say. So inside of me, whether I have an entire group or one person who pays attention to me, it motivates me to the, either I want to make them laugh or either I want to make them learn, want to help them to change their behavior. So that motivation, it's always me. And when it comes to performing in front of the public, for example, the bigger the crowd for me, the more calm I am.
All right, okay.
So not that I'm worried about on a one-on-one work, don't mistake me, but the last series of shows was what I did. It ended up about 10 years ago. And I had a 10 years contract. Every year we did Canada's biggest Christmas parties. And I was the headliner event in a stadium between 2,000 to 4,000 people size shows. So to walking out on the magnitude of that show, it's, to me, that's the calmest feeling you can ever think of, walking on the stage. And that motivates me to, so when I'm on stage or when I'm performing, I'm home.
Do you think that calmness purely, obviously there's two elements to this. There's performance-wise, it feels like home, and I get exactly what you mean by that, because it doesn't matter whether it was doing magic, hypnosis, whatever, there's a vibe and an energy from an audience. But from a stage hypnosis point of view, generally speaking, the more, there's obviously exceptions, but generally speaking, the bigger the audience, the more volunteers, the more people go under. That's a very generalized overview.
It's a number game.
Yeah. So do you think that's part of it, stage hypnosis wise? The more there is, the more, well, you know, it's more likely to be plain sailing tonight.
With the stage hypnosis, as people coming on the stage, we are focusing on those who immediately responding good, right? And then we select out the best and we're creating this scenery or fantasy for them for 90 minutes to 2 hours, okay? If you work on a one-on-one, you have to figure this person out internally. What's their motivation? What's their childhood traumas? What is the problem behind? What is the trigger mechanism? So you have to pay extra attention to that one particular issue. And before I actually do a therapy session, we might have 2, 3, or 4 different interview stages to get to know the client completely before I am able to do a proper therapy. On stage, you don't worry about this. You're really focusing on those who be creating the immediate responses for them. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you have done that millions of times, you know, going on stage.
Yes, however, what I have or haven't done is irrelevant. This is all about you, sir. And viewers and listeners will appreciate hearing this from someone who has done it in a different part of the world than me, who's done it at different types of venues than I have. It's, you know, even if it's only confirming what they already know, although for a lot of people, it will be brand new to them. There's already been golden nuggets in what you've shared. So it's interesting that you say that you sometimes have multiple interviews with therapy clients before actually getting to the, shall we say, hypnosis for the cliche. That sounds more like sort of a proper detailed history fact-finding mission that you kind of conventionally see in psychotherapy or counseling.
If I may say why I said what I said,
okay.
So many times I see it on the internet, people are advertising, oh, one session is going to happen and change everything on whatever. But it could, don't mistake it could. I have many clients who had one session and it made a huge impact or changes in their life. But not everybody is like that, and not everybody is going to go into it. However, the basic principle in hypnotherapy is activating emotions creates an automatic trance state. The deeper the emotion, the more profound is the trance is. So now the client, by the time they arrive to your room or to your therapy or clinic or whatever, by that time they are already in a self-hypnotic trance because of emotional issues, what they're dealing with, and who knows how long they are in this self-preserved trance trying to resolve their own personal issues. That trance, I am not the creator of that trance. I did not create, he did not follow my instruction to being in this trance. So first I have to figure out what is the issue, how am I gonna approach this, how to snap this person out of this, to start to think differently. You know what I mean? A person who believes in a certain area, oh, I'm phobic, or I have IBS, or...
So you're kind of saying that you're not hypnotizing them from scratch, you're taking over their self-created trance and then steering it in the direction it needs to go for you to be able to guide them to achieve what they want to.
Can I tell you a story? Here's a person came to me for the fear of flight. This lady was from Iraq originally and lived in Canada. So she says, can you help me because I want to fly again? But the last time when I went into the airplane, I had such a abreaction. I was screaming, suffocating, total panic attack. So they had to let me go out of the plane. So when I do a regressional hypnotherapy, and suddenly this is it. We are back now. She says, I am in Iraq. The US is bombing us. And I thought right away, oh, probably that's the connection. Okay, so it's easy to get misguided by the idea what the therapist can think of that what could be their problem. And I kept continuing. Okay, how did it make you feel? Da, 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 da. Eventually what happened is, and this was the story, she wanted to go away from an abusive husband in Canada. And she made the decision if she goes back to another country, to Jordan or whatever, she's not coming back. But that means she's walking away from her children because she's so scared of the husband. So the conflict now, the subconscious mind creates a phobic reaction. I can't stay on the plane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So many times what I noticed with clients, for example, in therapy session, especially with phobias, never ever that originates what they are coming with. So here is the lady with a spider phobia. Attila, can you help me? We're gonna go to New Zealand. I said, yeah, sure. So let's look at the review. And she said this, if I see a spot on the wall, I'm gonna scream, spider, my husband comes and kills it with the slippers, you know, boom. And I said, okay, let's see, how is this person utilizing or using this as a secondary gate? What is the control mechanism behind it? Why is she needs to be so scared of the, okay. And by regression therapy, we discover, but this, understand, this goes into a phobic state. They are becoming phobic about this, you know? So in regression therapy, going back, and she says, oh, I grew up in a farm. We had an outhouse. My father was always out there on the field with my older brother, and I missed my father. I didn't get enough attention. And she says, when I went into the outhouse, there was this slit. There were always little spider webs. If I screamed spider, that came, hugged me, cleaned it up with a piece of newspaper. So now she has got a husband who's not giving her enough affection. So the spider is utilized not to get, because now the husband is showing affection and love. I'm gonna take care of you if there's a spider.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there might be a connection, but many times people, they think of that the issue is, oh, let's focus on the spider. But what caused to manifest into that? So that was basically what I did a lot of therapy with people. So to me, it's very important to find out in a couple of, so even the interview stages, look, they are in a hypnoidal state. They are in a light hypnotic trance. It's almost like, can you hypnotize me? I said, can I de-hypnotize you from what you are already in?
Cool. So, because arguably, I would argue, and you've just basically said it, certainly alluded to it, that the whole ritualistic process of the intake form, some might call it, or the initial interview stage, whatever label somebody wants to give it, is actually part of the therapy because it's enhancing that psychological anticipation and expectation in the client. Would you agree?
To being hypnotized, or what do you mean exactly?
To the idea that, oh, we're having to go through these important processes and fact taking. It's kind of got that non-verbal suggestion in itself of what might happen if they went to see a medical consultant. So it's putting into that, if you like, another part that's triggering off the placebo effect.
In the field of hypnosis, doesn't matter whether we do a performance as a demonstration or as a show or as a scientific demonstration, maybe in a university or in a high school, or if you do a private session for a client. This is my philosophy and my approach. I need them to become a participant in what I do or what I say. Okay, so it's almost like, let's boil down to a sales technique. The more you do this, the more you say yes, the more I establish a rapport where you're going to accept what I want. I tell you a story. Once I did a show, it was one of these elite hotels in Banff Spring Hotel in Canada. Yeah, it's one of those very expensive places for a bunch of doctors. It's a doctors' conference. Now, when I did a performance, I wanted to be in charge. That means that I dictate when we start, not them, because we signed a contract. I'm going to go on the stage. I have an intro, what I'm using. I have lights. I'm creating an entry. I'm creating an impact. So now these doctors are bubbling. The dinner is over, you know, blah, blah. And suddenly a lady just goes up, and I'm already anxious. Let's get started. So I can give the sound cue, you know, my guy, I had sound technician, cameraman. I said, okay, then we're starting the show finally. And this lady just suddenly walks up on the stage, picks up the microphone from the hotel, not even mine. And she says, oh, okay, are you guys ready for the show? Here is Attila. Totally killed the entry, the impact. And so listen, and one of these doctors who was one of the big name, I don't know, some professor, sits in the front row and he pulls his chair out a little bit, crosses his leg, and he says to me on the stage, impress us. And I'm like, oh, you bugger. and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So listen, I realized that he's running the show, not me. He is the most respected among his peers. So I started to coming up with a bunch of ideas. I said, you as doctors, you probably learn about the subconscious and the conscious mind. I said, please understand, to be able to get hypnotized, I said, we need both parts, the conscious and the subconscious. Is there any of you think you cannot be hypnotized? Please put your hands up. This is already a suggestion. So as I say, please put your hands up. I'm already putting my hand up. So of course they responding to it, a few of them. I said, those who put your hand up, basically, you just told me that half of your brain is missing. You know, so I'm making
clever, yeah.
I'm making joke. And I said, plus also you understand that hypnosis is a form of concentration. So the higher the IQ, the higher education you have, for you is easier to be hypnotized. So guess who was the star of the show?
The guy who started.
The professor.
Impressed me.
Yeah. So we need to understand the psychology behind how people think.
That was a very powerful lesson. That. Yeah.
Sorry?
That was a very powerful lesson you've just shared with everybody.
Because look, he's rejecting me. He's taking control of me. And look, it's just going to be the same in your clientele if they come for a therapy. They coming, okay, solve me your problem, hypnotize me, make me quit smoking, or resolve my, I don't, like bad behaviors or whatever it is. So they pushing the how do you say, the idea that you are the solution for their problems. They have to be a part of that.
Mm.
So I have to reverse that. I have to pass the ball back to them. I said, look, I'm going to guide you and help you, but you need to be a participant what we're going to do. And there will be homeworks to follow up. It's not that you just putting me into the spotlight that, hey, hypnotize me. I'm going to fall asleep. I open my eyes and everything, I'm cured. It doesn't work like that. No.
Excellent. Yeah. Now, going off on a complete and utter tangent, kind of bringing things, we've talked about hypnosis, and yes, it's all relevant still now, but as we do this on the 16th of June 2022, for anyone who unasks this in decades to come, things are changing massively in the world. And I want to focus on stage hypnosis a little bit more, because comedy in general in the world is becoming more and more politically correct. You can't say this, you can't say that. There's all the, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, I'm just saying it makes our job more difficult. And also all the stuff like gender identities, people wanting to identify as different. Now, I know you've stopped doing shows as such, you mainly do therapy, but how do you feel you'd go about handling the way the climate has changed so massively in the past couple of years if you were back out there doing shows?
I would still continue doing the way I was doing. So I wouldn't worry about, this is me, this is my show, and this is what I produce, and this is what I present. I did always clean shows. I never performed in nightclubs and bars. I was into the corporate market or fundraiser events. Mm-hmm. It was more of a theater type of production, so I don't think I would change. The only thing I would change, probably, I would need to learn more updated movies and more updated of the music genre or the musicians. Because some of the younger kids, they've never seen maybe Michael Jackson, or they never seen Britney Spears. So what I mean? So I would change on that aspect, but I would not cater into this absolute nonsense stupidity what is going around the world. I don't care. Sorry, I really don't care about being politically correct. I am against this mass hypnosis, what is happening in the world. There is two gender, a man and a male. I don't care what you identify. And people's sexuality doesn't belong into my life. It's your privacy or anybody's privacy. This is how I feel.
Exactly. Everyone's free to do what they want to do as long as they're not harming anybody else.
I am not against anybody, or I don't care who loves who wants to have a family. I'm liberal enough on that aspect that, but what is going on around now, that now they want to change that it's not Father's Day, but people's who caring and loving Parents' Day, and this is insanity. I even posted it many times. Liberalism is a mental disorder.
One could argue, and as you brought, I wouldn't have brought anything like this up. I never bring these kind of things up unless a guest does first, because it's just not fair. But as you brought this kind of response up, okay, I'm going to throw this into the equation, and you said it's a kind of insanity. What are your thoughts on the idea that it's actually really could be a purposely engineered kind of government backed psychological operation, PSYOP, to cause division and arguments and disagreements in society, so that the mass populace are preoccupied with all that kind of stuff, and therefore are blind to tons of other stuff that's going on.
Good point. Let's think like this. So if I create issues which are not really issues, so the public attention is now suddenly supporting small little minority groups. In reality, would it make any difference who loves who and who lives with who and you know what I mean? Why
no, it shouldn't, should it? No.
Shouldn't be an issue. However, now the political system, they are actually cashing out on these things for them, and they pushing these silly ideas. So all of us have to behave or accept that. And no offense, I'm not saying that these people are mentally sick or what. No, but I don't have to accept something which is not normal. No, understand that in the world, I know I had clients who are transgenders. I had clients who are gay. I remember clearly when I had the very first gay person telling me their life stories, and I realized that, oh my God, these people feel the same as I do. However, before that, I had a different view, but by listening to their life and their stories and issues, they are the same human being like any one of us. Why would this need to be brought out to the surface, so turning people against each other on this? Precisely. You know what I mean? It's a mass manipulation. Doesn't matter which way we go in. If we would learn simply just to accept each other and love each other, does it make any difference if two men holding hands or two girls holding hands?
No.
To me, it makes no difference.
The trouble is then, if everyone was loving or accepting of each other, that, wow, that means people would help each other more and not be attacking each other. So if they're helping it, everyone would progress and get further in life, which it appears to me at least that certain people in much higher up powerful positions wouldn't want that to happen because it would give them less control over everything.
What I'm saying is really they are desensitizing worldwide the family values or the family structures. And then there is the other side of the rigid, the religious mentality that everything is God and everything is Jesus and everything is always has to be brought into the, like I do believe in free choices. And free choice to me means that I can practice what I want as long as I don't hurt you. Very simple. So I do believe that it's the parents' responsibility to raise their children and give them the choice and the chances how and what they learn in life. For example, somebody just posted yesterday, a young man died drinking a lot of these power drink, the energy drinks.
Oh, yeah.
And a bunch of posts underneath it right away that those parents should be in jail and shot to hell and, who gives children these drinks. I said, listen, try to stop a 14-year-old kid with anything. Impossible. Am I right? Were you 14 one day, Alex?
Yeah, there's going to be a time when the parents aren't around, they're with their friends, even if they haven't got money themselves, a friend might have and offer to buy them one. And it's inevitably likely it can happen, yeah.
And going back to this political stuff in the society, I do see this is the political system is creating the structure where they actually trying to take all responsibility away from people. Oh, you are not responsible for it. The government will take care of it. The government will create this, the government this, the government that. I grew up in a communist country. It doesn't work. Let's be clear. It doesn't work. Communism doesn't work.
So you alluding here to things like, the first thing I think of based on what you've just said is the sort of China-style social credit system, which it does appear as though in recent months, in the past couple of years, more and more in America, England, and Europe, they've been talking about creating a universal basic income. And putting it across under the guise of this will remove worry and stress from people and mean people will not be homeless and hungry, they will not be on the breadline, they'll be able to live better lives. Whereas if you dig a bit deeper, some might argue that whilst that could be true to a degree, it would also remove people's freedoms, because in order to get such, it would also make them dependent on it and make them less likely to be motivated to do things for themselves.
Alex, you are a hypnotist and you are also an NLP practitioner. You are a teacher. You are doing this for probably 30 years at least.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm sure you've seen the same way. They created a fear. Then they separated from each other so we can't communicate. We don't have physical contact, right? Then they told us more mandates, put your masks on. Then those people who created the problems, then they gave us the resolution, the solution. Now we're gonna rescue you.
Problem,
and then they
reaction, solution.
And then after that came the double blind NLP techniques, Pfizer or Moderna. You know what I mean?
Illusion of choice, which is the same with politics.
If you don't follow these psychological games, what they did, you became the enemy. Then they started to manipulating us. Then they started to emotionally blackmailing us. You have to do this for the rest of the people.
For your old relatives, yeah.
This entire thing is created. First, I said it was a mass hypnosis, and then it's turned into mass psychosis.
I couldn't agree more.
And now they are just pushing and more and more and more. Until the people, if I keep you in fear, constant fear, your limbic system, you're constantly triggered into surviving more.
Yeah, and stress, which in itself can.
And I'm not a part of this game.
No, but stress, which is connected with fear in itself, over a long period of time, it's proven can end up causing genuine genetic, organic disease and illnesses.
And think about this, all the food, what they are eating these days. Everything is packaged, trans fats, sugar, food that in boxes. And 100 years ago, we didn't eat like this.
It's unnatural, which is great. I'm looking at you and I'm seeing the plants on either side of you, and it immediately makes me think of something I was taught in my early teens, which if you want a natural or healthy outcome, you need to be feeding in. And they weren't just talking about food, they were also about what you read, what you think, but also what you eat, natural, positive stuff. Otherwise, if you're feeding in crap, whether that's processed foods, totally negative imagery from the mass media of fear, like you said, then you're going to get an outcome of crap and negativity. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Attila. Bang on.
Think about this. I was born 1962. I'm 60 years old. Okay, so what if I already born into a lie? Everything what they taught me and they trained me into, it's already a lie. Okay, now look at the kids now. They are born and they are brainwashed. Milk is bad, egg is bad, butter is bad, everything is factory created garbage, toxic waste, and they believe this is healthy for them. Try to convince them now that egg is healthy. Start to convince them that duck fat is one of the healthiest fat you can eat. So if a society, and this is exactly what I'm saying, structure of society now is being changed into new norms. The next generation, 10, 20 years, this is going to be their normal. There is no mom and dad. Only loving parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is step by step. If we are changing these rules, these ideas, we are programming an entire society.
What is scary, and I know what you're saying to be based in fact and reality. What is scary, some viewers or listeners will be thinking, this all sounds a bit conspiracy theory-fied. But what is bizarre, or not bizarre, depending on how you look at it, is that the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization and similar governmental bodies around the world have got freely available on their websites documents that they've had out for years, laying out their plans and aims for Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. You know, where apparently, according to Klaus Schwab, and I probably pronounced his name wrong, but Klaus Schwab said, you will own nothing and you'll be happy about it. It's laid out in black and white. They don't even hide it. And yet people seem to be walking around like zombies, sleepwalking zombies, falling for the mass hypnosis and manipulation.
Critical thinking is almost like a gift now these days. You know what I mean by that? That people are so easily give up their will to think. Mm-hmm. And that's the society is now programmed into. I will do everything for you and just follow the rules. And the only way I can accomplish is that I play you, you can do whatever you want. Nobody will ever convince me smoking marijuana is healthy. Okay. However, now they are legalized marijuana pretty much all over the world.
Mm. You see, I have two views on that. One, quite simply and logically, goes back to what I said before, which is if you put something into your body that doesn't naturally need to go there, then it can't be natural. But the other is that some studies allegedly have shown that there can be medicinal benefit, but it's certain parts of what's in it, not the thing as a whole. So you just some elements, just got to be careful of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I think what you mentioned about this, the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum and all of these things, I don't necessarily believe in these conspiracies that, oh yeah, they want to destroy the world. And I do believe these people are having stupid ideology, you know, just like Marx had or Lenin had. And then they are presenting this and manipulating people emotionally who buys into these stories. Okay, but if you look at history, every era, every 100 years had some kind of a tyrant or some kind of a madman who had the same idea.
Hence
had the same idea.
Cliche but truth that history repeats itself.
So ever since that, whether it's Genghis Khan, whether it was the Ottoman Turks, or even Attila the Hun, you know, it doesn't matter. There was always somebody wanted to have a one world order or ruling the one world. Okay, it's always existed. But how can I accomplish this? Well, if I create fear and then I offer you the solution, the longer I maintain you that you are emotionally stuck, you are in a surviving mode. And if I'm activated into the daily surviving mode and I make this harder and harder and harder for you, eventually people will give up the will to fight because they want to survive.
Now, this is pure conjecture, but imagine, and I know it's an awful thought for some people, just imagine everybody fell for the mass brainwashing, the manipulation, and they did end up with a one world system or whatever. Ironically, I'm going to throw it out there that I don't think it would last very long anyway, because once they'd achieved that outcome, aside from the fact over a period of time, some people would snap out of it eventually, but the actual, I'm going to use the term powers that be, but the people who'd helped it occur would have achieved their aim. They'd have nothing to focus on. So they'd end up then looking at each other more and end up infighting, and it would end up falling apart because their own egos were getting in the way, and it'd end up come crumbling down and kind of go back to square one.
Human nature is that it's impossible to have this idea. It's absolutely insane idea and theory of that we are all equal and all the same and we all deserve the same. It will never happen. Unnatural. It doesn't even happen in animal kingdom. I have lots of dogs throughout the years. Every single dog has a different personality. They want different things. They respond differently. When we do a hypnosis show, for example, there is 20, 30 people on the stage. Am I right? And we have to figure out who responds the best. Have you ever done a show? Okay, when you hypnotize them, you select out those who immediately closes their eyes and they responding to sleep suggestions. And then they open their eyes and they write that the first suggestion you say, they refuse. And not the negative, and not the negative example, because one rejects an idea and the next rejects the idea. And now suddenly we have a negative chain reaction of that. Now I have to reverse it. How do I reverse that so I still win the show? You know, and that's the same thing in society. I can hypnotize you by creating fear. I can hypnotize you by creating the solution. But sooner or later, people will snap out of these things and they want their own. There is no such a, I had once a show when I said, the guy, next time you open your eyes, you will be Michael Jackson. I have these video clips in my shows and my courses. So I gave him the silver glove, the hat, you know, and he's ready to perform. And the lady who's sitting right there beside him on the stage, one of the hypnotized subjects, she just jokingly said, "Oh, you child molester." Oh. And the guy immediately took his hat off, his gloves off. He says, I gotta go. I'm not Michael Jackson. I said, how come? Because I am not Michael Jackson. So immediately he snapped out of this. So we understand that hypnosis is, I can manipulate a person to, I mean, I'm talking about political system. I can manipulate them until I'm gonna create fear. But there will be people eventually will fight out of this fear. And they will come out of it and snap out. There's no possibility, impossible to creating a society then everybody and everything is equal. It's a human nature. Somebody wants something different. So I am different, you are different, every one of us are different.
Politically, the place that people tend to learn of this illusion, the illusion of voting. You've got a choice here, a choice here, or a choice here. Gives people the idea they've got some sense of control over it, but whoever gets in my opinion, ends up doing what they're told by far more powerful people anyway. It's just a front thing. And that propaganda is put out there through the mainstream media, the newspapers, the news channels and stuff, who I would argue are the biggest hypnotists around. Hence they're called programs that they put out. That's what it exists for, I believe, the media, to condition and control people.
You see, I never, I wasn't against these vaccines, or I wasn't against all of these issues, or I'm not a conspiracy theorist that I believe or don't believe in this. I had always had my vaccines down. First of all, there's a difference between an immunization and there's a difference between vaccination. So, and this is not an immunization. Second of all, I watched the psychological factors right from the beginning. I responded when they said, don't go anywhere because there is a virus spreading. Takes only about a couple of days to realize that you don't hear the ambulance running everywhere. You don't see people falling and dying everywhere. You know, as a matter of fact, I was teaching a classroom and there was a lady who's a doctor and she is a virologist. And she says to me, there's no pandemic. And that was in 2020 March. Don't believe in this. You know, so right away, I became very leery about what's happening. And then I saw the psychological manipulation of this entire thing. And I do believe the politicians, they got scared. So they created these mandates and rules. Now the next country gets scared. They want to overdo that. Oh, I'm protecting more my people and my country. I want to be a good prime minister, a good president. And it's just escalated way out of hand to stupidity.
Mass hysteria.
There's a mass hysteria. But now these tyrant rulers, they don't want to admit, look, I made a bad decision. I shouldn't have do this. Or no, they still maintain. And now all the science is coming out, look, we have now more harm from the vaccinated people than the unvaccinated people. So how do I say this? Took about 2 years to bring this down, and suddenly now they escalated back again on other issue, another fear. I don't believe that they want to depopulate the world. If they want to, put it into the milk. How about they have to put a little anything into the milk? In England, probably into the beer. But, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there'll be a lot quicker and easier ways of doing it. I agree.
So however, I don't believe in this.
What I think may be more likely is that it's a purposeful attempt to collapse the world economies so that they can bring in this central bank digital currency that more and more countries have started talking about.
Alex, it is a stage hypnosis show, worldwide show. Am I correct?
I totally agree with you, and that's why I wasn't planning to go down this route, but as
Amen,
it's gone that way, I could not agree with you more. It is like yeah, it's the same conditioning, convincers, escalation, deepeners that we'd call it, but they're escalate. Yeah, it mirrors hypnosis.
You know, I got attacked so many times. So you big mouth Attila, what would you have done? And I said, listen, we already know that respiratory infections, how to treat them. When I was a kid, what did my mother do? Number one thing was pushing the vitamin C's. Have you heard of that, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay. So then after tea with lemon in it, then garlic and honey in a teaspoon. I'm not saying these remedies, I want to sell these ideas at the moment. Don't mistake me. What I'm saying that this, what would have happened if the government, every single country would have focused on prevention? How about if every package, every family would have received the monthly packages of all the vitamins, the minerals, the essential fatty acids, all healthy food packages, the organic food would have been released and supporting food cheaper. You know what I mean? If we would, no, let's spend billions of dollars to the pharmaceutical industry, into chemicals. How about the prevention? And there was already discovered the couple of medications that started to working, you know, in New York, in India. You heard these stories, and they banned those. But in Mexico, you can buy it. But in Mexico, you can buy those in a vending machine on the airport.
Oh.
You know, ivermectin and all of these other. So what I'm saying that it's a mass manipulation, what is happening in the world. And I do believe that if people are giving in to this fear, they will lose in it.
And I agree more, and that's why I say people should, for example, go to the links below this video or audio and visit Attila's website, look into some of his courses, and I promise you, if you're someone who's not been involved in hypnosis for long, but you study it deeper through the kind of resources that Attila makes available, your eyes will open not just how you can entertain people or help them change their life, but also to what's going on around you, as Attila's been saying, because although his courses teach hypnosis for therapy on stage, it does cross over into every area of life.
Can we dehypnotize society from this? Now I'm going to ask you.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of people out there that are bloody well trying through documentaries they put out. I mean, I put a documentary out in 2019, which was on truth researcher David Icke's online television channel, Iconic. Exclusively, it was there or on download on Amazon Prime Video. But then in early 21 last year, we took it off sale. It's still on Iconic, David TV channel, but we took it off sale and I've uploaded it publicly for free because I figured hopefully, but I hope more people see it that way. And it's basically an hour and 50-minute documentary showing the kind of things that you've mentioned, how religion is hypnosis, how politics is hypnosis, how the education system is indoctrination, and all different areas of life, in the hope that it might get people to open their eyes a bit. But honestly, yeah, some people will open their eyes, but I find it quite scary.
It's almost, I say this, the mass hypnosis now what we are facing is basically, it's almost like a paranoia of a cognitive dissonance, that no matter what you're gonna tell, no matter what information, no matter what proof you have, no matter, you know, they're gonna still believe in what they want to do.
Yeah, because it's very difficult for someone.
Because of fear. Because of fear.
But also, as you said, cognitive dissonance, it's very hard to take that idea or belief you've had for so long that the powers that be have got your best interest at heart. They're there to protect you, and they wouldn't possibly let you have something that was dangerous or steer you away from something that was a better option. To have to accept that maybe not everything's the way you've been led to believe is very uncomfortable for people, hence cognitive dissonance of not accepting it.
Here is an argument for people who doesn't want to look at differently life. How did humanity survive all these centuries? Okay. Pharmaceutical industry is about what, 130, 140 years old the most?
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct? So how did we survive 5, 6, 7,000? If you just go by the Bible, how did we survive that 6,000 years humanity without the pharmaceutical industry?
Naturally. Nature.
Okay. So how did the humanity survive eating pigs, animal fat, and eggs? Suddenly now there comes a Goomba and says, oh, these are all unhealthy. How come? But now in factory manufactured, chemically introduced food packages are healthy for children, called cereal. You know what like? So, but if you are born into this idea, doesn't matter what the lie is, it's a part of you.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening at the moment. They're changing society because the next generation, they are now born into this new ideology.
The one thing I'd encourage people to look at, tap into Google. There's no conspiracy theory here. It's cold, hard, evidential fact that if you type in into Google something like, what companies does BlackRock Finance own?
Yep.
And they're a company that deal in getting stocks and shares for investors and whatnot. But there's on the basis of the number of people in the world, how many investors there are with the massive biggest shares in the biggest companies, you will see images, graphs come up on their own website. So there's no theory, it's their own from the horse's mouth, showing that ultimately they own all the food production companies. There's only about half a dozen to 8 companies that actually own at the mother level all of these apparent brands that are in competition with each other, which really are owned by about half a dozen to 8 companies. But those half to dozen 8 companies are owned by shareholders that own shares in all of them. So they really all root back to one source. And if there's an option out there that would take money away from that one source, you can sure as hell that they're going to encourage the shareholders here to go against it, to encourage the companies here to go against it, to then encourage the media to put out the message to convince people to go against it.
Well, hey, we recognize that it's a mass hypnosis. We understand that it's a worldwide stage hypnosis show. I know that I don't want to participate in it. And I hope that more and more people will listen to us and they will snap out of this hypnotic dreaming that the government will say.
And that is an excellent place to wrap up and say, look at the video links, not video links, website links, social media links that will be below this video or below the speaker on the podcast platforms. go and check out Attila's videos on YouTube, check out his products and courses he's got available on his website. If you've got any questions, I'm sure if you email Attila via his website, he will guide you to which would be the most appropriate course for you to look into for whatever your aim or desire is that you wish to achieve. Attila,
can I plug in something?
Of course you can.
I want to show you something.
I was just about to say,
I have only left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have only 7 sets left. This is a DVD series of my stage hypnosis course.
All right.
Okay. It has a bonus DVD, me and Gil going together as well in it. 10 DVD sets. On my website, I sell it for $500. I have only 7 left and it's done. No more. I won't reproduce these. If anybody wants to have it through you, it's only $300.
Wow.
Each set. So it's $200 off if some. I have only 7 sets.
You just have to, when you contact, email Attila via his website, the link's there, mention Hypnosis Week episode 101.
It was filmed in Los Angeles when I was teaching there with Gil.
Excellent. That'll be DVD. So yeah, email Attila via his website below, make the subject heading Hypnosis Week episode 101, which is what this is. Then he'll know it's in reference to this. And just ask inside, hey, how can I pay you the special offer price? And he'll send you the details of how to pay. And you can grab one of them, which A, will be highly educational and useful to you. Even if you're a hypnotherapist just wanting to learn rapid inductions and stuff that you can use in therapy, or you want to learn the stage techniques for being able to do group therapy sessions and demonstrations that could attract clients to you, then I'd recommend that. And also, of course, if there's only 7 left, he's not going to reproduce anymore. Could ask him to sign it for you as well when you buy it, because it could be a bloody collector's item in the future as well. Thank you, Attila. You are an absolute star, a true legend. Thank you for sharing nuggets of your wisdom and experience. Sir, I understand why you've had so many awards. It's because you understand the subject so bloody damn well and explain it so well. Thank you very much indeed.
No, thank you for having me.